All right, everybody, welcome to the digital frontier. We're here to talk about some WEBTOON strips today. WEBTOON is a platform that's absolutely amazing, and I'm a huge supporter of WEBTOON. My name is Jace Milam. I host WEBTOON Wednesdays every Wednesday with WEBTOON creators that come on and talk about their comics. And I've been reading comics for a long time, 30-something years, not to date myself, but back when I started reading, it was the spinner rack, right, at like the local 7-Eleven. And that's kind of gone the way of the dodo. But everybody now has a spinner rack in their pocket now, right? Like we all carry around these awesome computers. And you can get WEBTOON comics anywhere, right? Anywhere you are, on the bus, on your lunch break, whatever, right? It's really amazing. And what's great about WEBTOON is the fact that these guys get to create content, put it up there for all of you to read, and they get to share their passion with you. But the thing is, it's free for you, but they're still making comparable rates to somebody that works at Marvel and DC, and that's what I think is so amazing about the WEBTOON platform. So we're going to get started. As I said, that's me, Jace Milam, Comic Source. You can go to LRM online to find the podcast, or just follow me on social media. Just look for the Comic Source. Every Wednesday, new episodes coming out. And I do have some Comic Source lanyards at the end if anybody wants to come up and grab them. But we're going to go down the line here, and we're going to let everybody introduce themselves and let us know what their webcomic is and what genre it is. Okay, so we'll kick it off with Merryweather.
Hello everyone, my name is Merryweather. I make Winter Moon, Everywhere and Nowhere, Stalker X Stalker, Internet Explorer, and several others. Also, I'm not an artist, I'm a writer. The artists couldn't make it. There's 9 of them though.
I'm Erika Lewis. I write Firebrand with Jessica Chobot and Claudia Aguirre, who does our artwork. And I also write a Cursian with John Barrowman and Carol Barrowman. And Benny Lobel does the artwork.
Hi, I'm Quimchee, the creator of I Love You, which is a drama romance comic.
Hey, I'm Uru-chan. I write UnOrdinary, which is an action fantasy webtoon.
I'm Leanne Krasik, known as Mongie, and I do Let's Play, which is a rom-com.
All right, so as I said, we all have a spinner rack in our pocket now, right? It's the best way to read comics, I think, and especially unique with WEBTOON with the vertical scroll, as you guys have probably seen, and it gives you the opportunity to not necessarily do motion comics, but to play with the format a lot. And so I wanted to ask the panelists, and we'll start with you, Merryweather, and kind of go down the line about what led to your decision to decide to embrace the future, to go digital comics rather than pursue the traditional sort of print medium that comics have always been in.
The only manga publisher in Denmark went bankrupt. I was kind of forced to upload it online. Back then, it wasn't very popular. WEBTOON hadn't really took the high rise it had. So I kind of switched to that and kind of evolved as it did, and then went on WEBTOON.
Well, actually, I was working with Legendary on the IP, and in evaluating everything, it just made more sense to do things on WEBTOON. There's much more reach. People actually go into it and read it, and getting people into the comic stores these days seems like it's much harder on the print side of things. And also the experience itself, scrolling, and lends itself much better to me to almost like a new media in a way. It's a moving motion comic as opposed to just trying to take in an entire page at once. You're kind of focusing in on whatever that scene is that's pulling you in. So it's just exciting and fun and different. So.
Cool.
Well, I also liked how easily accessible WEBTOONs is. Like anyone with a phone or like internet can access the website, and anyone who wants to make comics can just create comics on WEBTOONs. And I also like how there's the comment system where you could sort of build a relationship with your fandom and like get some feedback over there as well.
Yeah, and adding on to that, so, back when I first started getting interested in this stuff, most print things that I read were manga, and they were mostly in Japan, which was pretty unreachable from the US, which is when I started finding manga and comic publishing sites online. That's when I started posting stuff online, and it's like you guys mentioned, it's very accessible, everyone can use it, everyone can see it, so it's great.
I'm a weeb. So I got into WEBTOON so I can meet these cool people. That's it. No, no, actually, working IT and stuff, I just thought this vertical scrolling format of WEBTOONs was just so awesome in terms of like storytelling, because you have this infinite canvas, and like with pages, I'm not gonna lie, I read a lot of fan translations and scanlations over the years from manga, and you have to zoom into that stuff and pray that it's in a font it doesn't have a bajillion different JPEGs, pixelizations, and you have this that it's like, no, not everybody, but mostly everybody has a smart device, and now we're gonna start making comics that actually accommodates that stuff, and I was like, yeah, let's do this. So that's why I was really most interested in it.
Merryweathery, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the manga publisher in Denmark went bankrupt, so you were kind of forced into it, but once you took that step and went digital, did you find a freedom in it to be able to just create and upload? And there's not a lot of barriers for anybody. If we have any aspiring creators out there, we have the Canvas side at WEBTOON where anybody can create and upload, right? And there's freedom in that to be able to just create something and share it. So did you find that once you took the leap?
Absolutely. I've found a great deal of freedom in the online platform, and you'll find I have an account on pretty much every website where it'll allow me to upload a comic. I also have taken the step of allowing anyone to re-upload my comics, except my featured comics, my original WEBTOON comics. But yeah, just the freedom of the online platform. I believe it's the greatest entertainment platform in the history of man. So I think it's pretty cool, yeah.
So if there are any aspiring creators out there, I wanted to talk about prepping for launch. I think with WEBTOON, you want to have when you go over to the featured side, if you're invited, you start on Canvas, or if you have your own comic and they reach out to you, you want to be ready, right, to take that step, and you want to give yourself the best chance to succeed. So let's start with you, Erika. What advice would you give somebody when they're getting ready to take that leap and put themselves out there? Because it's scary, and we get it, right, to put yourself out there, to put your work out there. But I'll tell you this, if you never put it up there, nobody will ever see it, right? You will miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So take a chance. So let's talk about getting ready. What do you think you need to do? What advice would you give to people getting ready to launch?
Have a lot done. The hardest part is the volume, and you readers are insatiable, and it never gets done fast enough or quick enough. And I work a little differently in that I work on these properties with a studio, so it's even slower, which makes everybody, I mean, some of the comments is just devastating. You go in there when they're like waiting between seasons. But it's having a lot of volume, knowing where your story's going, have everything mapped out, so that when you're, I mean, things always veer off if you're doing as many chapters especially as these guys do. But it's making sure that you're at least a month to two ahead of the game, so that you're not killing yourself every week.
Quimchee, you have anything to add about getting ready to launch? What advice would you give?
I would say you're not gonna please everyone, so just get ready for some negative feedback. I mean, it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
But just know that there's like a lot of people supporting your work. I mean, it got featured for a reason,
Yeah.
So like maybe like learn to have some faith in yourself or believe in yourself too. It's like that helps a lot.
Now, the two creators on the end have maybe two of the most popular webtoons out there, Let's Play and UnOrdinary. So I want to kind of ask your advice about this question in a little bit of a different way. In what way can you prep yourself for any criticism or to build a community? Are there things you can do ahead of launch to kind of put your best foot forward in terms of building that community and helping to get the comic out there in front of as many eyes as possible?
You want to go first? Okay, I'll go. So one of the things is if you're wanting to get into that, to prep, like, I've said this before, and this is something my husband likes to say, and he goes, even Jesus had haters, right? There is nobody in the existence of all mankind has not had somebody go, hey, you suck, and it doesn't matter. You could do everything perfect, and there's somebody who's going to hate the fact you're doing it perfectly. So if you're afraid to put your comic, whether it be in Canvas or anywhere, and you're afraid of it, ask yourself what you're afraid of. Are you afraid that your comic's not going to get liked? Well, nobody's going to like it if they don't see it. So you're already defeating yourself in that respect. And when I became featured, actually, it was before I became featured. It was Discover at the time, Canvas now. When I got haters, my husband and I actually went out to dinner and we had champagne and we toasted that haters, because it was like, you're there, honey, you know. And so when you take it in stride, now I'm not going to say that I haven't read hate comments and cried into a bowl of dairy-free ice cream, but it's going to happen, and you just have to tell yourself, you know, it's that one squeaky wheel. You've got readers who love you, who support you, and it's always going to be that one hand that slaps you across the face, even though you shook 99 other hands. But it's just the sacrifice you make.
Yeah, and then one thing to also keep in mind is it's your story. You're the one who knows every single thing about your story. Your readers know nothing about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, just keep that in mind and be confident with what you have.
Right.
So go into it knowing that, yeah, you're not going to be able to please everybody, right? But, you know, you do the best you can, and you put your work out there, and you get to share it, and you get to connect with people, and it does foster a community. So when you're getting ready to launch, you know, obviously be prepared, have a body of work that's ready to go, just in case life happens, as it always does. Mm-hmm. But let me ask you, Merryweather, when you are prepping, and I know this is something a lot of people struggle with, even when they're thinking about taking that leap and putting something out there for the world to see, when do you know you're ready, or do you ever know that okay, now that I've created this and I am ready to put out there? What goes through your mind when you start thinking about that? When is a project ready?
When I feel like I can confidently write 100 episodes without losing ideas or without making it horrible, I feel like I'm relatively ready to upload it. When you've written a lot of different comics and tried out a lot of different concepts, you start to get a feel for what will work and what won't. But if you are to start making comics, I recommend starting small. Everyone wants to start with a huge 300-chapter space opera. Maybe not the best idea to start out with. Try 4 panels.
Yeah, and Quimchee, I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned this on one of the earlier panels today, about having an idea of where you're going. Don't start to tell a story if you don't kind of know the ending, because you can get lost along the way, right?
I don't think that was me.
No, oh, sorry. It might have been June. I'm sorry about that. But do you find that to be true? Like, know the ending before you start?
Sort of, I do agree, because it's good to have like some sort of direction, because if you're like running out of, it's like sort of like an inspiration for yourself. You know, you want to get there, and if you have nowhere, like no destination, you're sort of gonna get lost. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So have an idea.
Have at least an idea
right.
of what you want to do.
You may not know how you're going to get to the end, but it gives you a destination,
Yeah,
something to shoot for,
yes.
so to speak. Okay, so let's say you've taken the leap, you're out there, you're on Canvas. Now the challenge is the ever never goes away, always hanging over there back of your shoulder deadline, right? It's always there, and you've got to sustain. And as you said, Erika, you readers are insatiable, and you're always, when's the next chapter coming out? Oh, I can't wait. And it's a good problem to have, right? Like, when they stop clamoring for the next episode, that's when you have to worry.
Yeah.
But what can you do? Let's start with you, Quimchee. What's the balance between working and not work? Because, you know, webcomics, you can upload from anywhere. You're working on a tablet. So it's not like you go into the office. It's not a 9 to 5. So how do you each deal with that kind of balance and making sure you're taking care of yourself and continue to be inspired? What's your process?
Well, for me, I just have to remember that I have to like set some limits, because you want to make a perfect chapter, but sometimes you can't do it because of time constraints, because of deadlines. So you have to learn how to make like sacrifices, how to portray a scene more effectively, and like taking out panels. 'Cause otherwise, I'm just gonna keep drawing and drawing, and I'll never be satisfied. And I think that's another thing. Like, artists are never satisfied, and you have to like learn to deal with that.
How about you, Uru-chan? How do you balance the work and keep going, keep sustaining, especially for somebody who's your strip is, you know, UnOrdinary is hugely popular, So I'm sure they're always clamoring for the next episode.
I keep a very strict schedule that like I pretty much have to follow. I'm on before I didn't really set limits for myself. I kind of just tried to write as much as I could. But now I'm on hiatus and I'm starting to go out more and I'm starting to work out and I'm starting to see the sun and realizing how important it is to actually, not be cooped up at home all the time. And I think it's important to accept help from other people. I've been hiring a lot of colorists and a lot of line artists to help me get the work done so that I don't have to bother with all of it.
Yeah, you don't want to kill yourself because
No.
You wanna cry
you burn
every
yourself
week.
out and then there's no more unordinary at all, right?
Exactly.
And how about for you, Leanne?
I have to take a vitamin D supplement because I don't really get outside that much. And we could sit up here and we could say that we work hours and hours. We suffer for our art in a sense. But like I am like Uru-chan, I'm trying to work out, try to get in shape, and so I can take my editor. I think I can take him on. But it's one of those things that, for me personally, finding the time can be a struggle. I have friends over, my family, or my husband, I have friends over every Saturday to board game, and there's a lot of times I have to go back up to my office and work, and there I can hear him laughing down playing board games because I have to meet my deadline.
That's such a sad image.
It is a very sad image. Like a single tear rolls down my cheek. But at the same time, I freaking love what I do. When I was working IT, I would be playing the board games. I wouldn't care about the server, But now working on my comic, it's like I want to bring an episode each week. I know there are people who are counting on me. They're in a place where they need to have some sort of distraction. Mondays suck, and that's when my comic comes out, and so it's suffering in a physical sense, but it's spiritual and an emotional sense. That makes sense. Is that sappy as heck? I don't know. It makes sense to me in my head.
But it's rewarding to be able
It
to.
is rewarding.
You're sharing a part of yourself, and you're connecting with somebody that's on the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
Around the world, which is amazing.
Right.
It's amazing. How about you, Merryweather? How do you find that balance?
Sustaining?
Mm-hmm.
Well, usually my work gets done like 2 months before the actual deadline because I'm the writer, not the artist. But I'd say the most important thing is having a good time management. Something we've been trying to do is get things done 24 hours before we actually have to get it done. That tends to help a lot. But yeah.
How about you, Erika? I know, because it's not just, you write so many different things, novels and prose
I'm
and-
always on deadline, and I have 2 children I rarely see these days. But it's if you enjoy writing, you do it regardless, and it's your fun. I will say that the highlight of my day is working on my WEBTOON comics. Sometimes when I've been in prose all day long writing like a YA novel or something, it's just so refreshing to sit down with Lucan and Natalie and have them doing something stupid that I know everybody's going to hate, because the greatest thing is going into the comments and seeing so much hate lumped onto one of your characters. Apparently none of mine are very likable, sorry. So it's kind of funny. And you get that feedback. So for me, I kind of, it's weird. It's like I know that I'm going to get some kind of something out of it, where when I write a novel or if I'm working on a TV series, you wait for it to go. And then a year later, it takes a full-on year for them to publish something you've been done with for a year in a book. So eventually somebody will read it and tell you whether they liked it or not. So
Yeah, and WEBTOON is so different, right? Because
WEBTOON is so different.
You publish it and you
Oh, yeah.
immediately comments, feedback, right?
Yeah, and I'm always afraid to go in there and say anything. I have to get some feedback from everybody else on that, because do they want to hear from me? Are they afraid to talk if I say something? Because sometimes they do really dump all over this one particular character. And I find it actually amusing, because, all characters should be flawed. So.
Yeah, and it actually leads us to our next point, and that's talking about building your brand, right? Reaching your audience. And it's something that's so unique about WEBTOON, and we always talk about it on WEBTOON Wednesday, sort of at the end of the episode, about fan interactions and community, and WEBTOON is so amazing. It's like the exception that proves the rule on the internet, where there actually can be nice people on the internet making nice comments. Not 100% of the time. You get the haters, as Leanne mentioned earlier, but it's so important. It's right there. It's on a digital device. You know, we all know about social media and you know, the tools that are available. As a creator, it's important, if you're an aspiring creator, to get your work out there, get it in front of as many eyes as you can, which is why WEBTOON is such a great platform. But let's start with you, Quimchee, about building your brand, reaching your audience. If there's any aspiring creators out there, what advice would you give as you're getting started? What is maybe some of the mistakes you want to avoid, or things you should do when you're getting ready to launch?
Well, when I first started on Discover, there's only like maybe a few hundred comments, and I would try to engage or like talk to the people on there, like reply to everyone's comments. And then one thing I learned is like, if you see a terrible one, control yourself. Don't like say, and like try not to like fight this person, because like people are gonna use that against you. I mean, it didn't happen to me, but like I've seen it happen on WEBTOONs, and you want to like keep like this, not really a pristine image, but you want to make sure that you're acting professionally. You know, you don't want to like scream at a 13-year-old. So.
You want to, but you don't.
Yeah, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. You shouldn't.
How about you, Uru-chan? What advice would you have for aspiring creators when they're getting ready to start and building that brand and getting your name out there? Because, I mean, you've got to be your own cheerleader, so to speak.
Right, yeah. I was going to say, before like jumping in, you want to make sure you know who your target audience is. Mm-hmm. And you want, I mean, I don't know if you want to be reading the comments, but you want to be looking for feedback so that you know exactly where your audience is mentally, so that you can kind of like adjust and tailor the story towards that too. It's good to take feedback. So make sure, yeah. So just don't be afraid to take feedback in and just try to filter out all the negativity.
Yeah, I've got a philosophy. I don't take smack from somebody who's younger than my Facebook account. I just don't. If a 12-year-old gets on there and they want to talk smack to me, I'm like, that's nice, honey. You're younger than my Facebook account, okay? But there's also something that I think is learning the difference between critique and criticism. Mm-hmm. People say, hey, your story sucks. That's criticism. Someone says, hey, I think your story might be kind of getting off base, and maybe you're thinking maybe this character is not like, you know, needs some flaws or whatever. That's critique, and that's to help you. That's to help the story get better. If someone's just trying to tear you down and lower the bar so they can reach it, that's not the feedback you need to worry about. And the more you do this, the more you start to be able to identify the difference. And I think that's really important.
What about you, Merryweather?
I have two responses to that question. In terms of dealing with haters, sometimes I just apologize to them, and then they feel sorry for me and they stop hating. On the other hand, in terms of building your brand, that was the question, right? Mm-hmm. What I did is I went on manga scanlation sites and I uploaded my own comics so that people thought it was a real manga, and then all the manga piracy sites stole it. But what they didn't see is I put a little read more at WEBTOON down below it.
He's playing the long con, man.
That's good.
I don't have anything better to do.
That's very smart.
Thank you.
What about you, Erika? What advice would you give about building your own brand?
Yeah, I think it is about knowing your audience. I mean, I typically stick to the young adult marketplace in what I write in general, and understanding that world and understanding their hot buttons. For me, I like to push the envelope, and so, you know, maybe it's for good or for bad. My stuff tends to be like, well, I can't believe they cheated on that one, and this one I'm like, well, you know, nobody's perfect, and so that's just so I stick to that. I mean, because it has worked for me in the past, and for me, it's more fun to write. And then, like you guys are saying, once you find that thing that people come for. I mean, I have people in the last 2 chapters, they'll go like, I'm so mad at these characters, I'm going to unsubscribe if it keeps going this direction. And for me, I take that as a win because they're so mad at the characters, but you kind of get sucked in, it's like
Yeah, they're
watching
invested.
a train wreck, Deadpool,
Yeah.
so yeah, but that's, I think, figuring out what it is that you enjoy writing and then finding your audience within that, and sticking to it so that people kind of have an expectation when they come in and they pick up something that you've written, as opposed to it being like, you're writing a romance novel and then you're stepping into high fantasy and then, you kind of build your brand about what it is you do.
So in a way, you're not only do you need to know your audience, but you need to know yourself. Like, what's
Yeah,
gonna
because
keep you passionate.
yeah, because Webtoon is a machine. You're feeding it, and if you get tired of writing what you're writing, or creating, it's just, you have to it keeps going.
Yep.
It's like Supernatural, the TV show. It just keeps going. Although I think it just ended.
All right, we're going to open it up to questions in just a couple minutes here. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of go down the line and tell everybody how you feel about where your strip is right now. And I know that multiple strips for you, Merryweather, and UnOrdinary is going to be coming back soon for Uru-chan down there. But just give everybody an idea of kind of where you're at with your strip and how you're feeling about it right now.
I've kind of got 2 parts to my own comics. I've got the social media stuff where I just kind of put out whatever I feel like, which is usually turning an inanimate object into an anime girl. Seems to be a working thing. Gives a lot of retweets at least. On the other hand, I'm really trying to. What I'm really envious of you guys is you guys can make really long comics, but I can't do that because that would be murder, in terms of killing my artists. I couldn't do that. That would be a little pretty bad career choice. Yeah.
For me, let's see, on Firebrand, I think 18 was just uploaded, and so the way, it's a little bit different because Legendary produces this comic with me, and so we are writing 26 chapters each season. There's a very set amount, and so we're at almost the end of the second act, I guess we could say, of the story that will come to a crashing conclusion at chapter 26. And then Accursian, which took a long break, is done. And they are starting uploading. Have they announced this yet? Am I allowed to? It's this month, towards the end of the month. I think it's October 21st. If I wasn't supposed to say that, I'm sorry. But I think it's October 21st, the John Barrowman comic. So that one is finally ready to get completely.
Get out
It's
there
going
into
to
the
run
world.
through the rest of the season. Yeah. It took a little bit of a break because we were killing the artist. So.
Awesome. And how about you, Quimchee?
Well, so for my comic, it's like a really slow burn character growth kind of story, and I would say it's nearing the end of the first act. And so maybe like 2 to 3 more years, because I grossly underestimated how long it would take. Like, when you write something, it's like, oh, I think I can draw this in 1 chapter, and then it turns out to be like 5 to 10 chapters instead. So I would say maybe like 3 more years.
But you feel good with
Yes.
where things are?
Yeah.
And UnOrdinary news?
Hey, so yeah, we just finished our first season, and it went well, thank God. Yeah, so the first season primarily focused on like John, the main character, and his mental state and his development, with some introduction to other characters. The second season, I'm hoping to kind of expand the world a little bit more, expand other characters a little bit more, and kind of just get everybody hopefully on the same page. I think in terms of overall length, probably 2 or 3 seasons, and that can be anywhere from like 2 to 4 years. I have no idea.
Yeah, and you just started your next season, right, Mongie?
Yeah, I did. I'm really happy with how season 1 went. I wanted season 1 really to establish the conflict, the struggle. I want season 2 to put emphasis on the growth and the development. And then I want season 3 and 4 to be like the trial, right? So 80s montage is the second season of growth. I want to definitely put a lot more emphasis in the romance aspect of season 2 for multiple characters. And I am happy with how the characters have grown story-wise. And I think it's interesting to read how readers are perceiving things, because I love not making characters black and white where they're like, oh, clearly this is the big B character, right? She's the whatever. And making people question their stereotypes, and I love that. And I love people going, please give me a reason to hate Monica. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. So I'm really pleased with how season 1 is going so far, and so far season 2 is going to be, as the Japanese says, supaishi. So we'll see.
And you had something else you wanted to add, Mary?
Oh yeah, Winter Moon and Everyone Nowhere is going to be back relatively soon, possibly end of this month or beginning of next month. Yeah.
All right, so now we'll open it up to you. Does anybody have any questions for any of the panelists here? Yeah, right over there with glasses. We have a mic, I think will make it a little...
That might help. Well, it's cording.
Yeah.
Do we want?
Got it.
If anybody
Yeah.
has questions,
Yeah, why
like
don't
you
you
in the
come up
center
here
and
with
it makes it a little bit easier. If you
Yeah.
have the mic, that would be great.
Oh,
I would
I'll
have
go
let you
first.
first. Yeah, then you start the key there. That would be great.
Yeah, you
Thank
too.
you so much. Sorry, give it a second.
No, you're
Do you want to pace and ask your question?
I'll ask my questions. This is working. This is working. Hello?
You got LA.
Testing. 1, 2.
Wires and all.
Yep, all right, fire away, sir.
I wonder if you could speak a little bit about, I noticed that one of you is publishing 26 new episodes. That would imply a bi-weekly publishing schedule. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit about what the optimum publishing schedule is. Is it weekly? Is it bi-weekly? Do you have a feeling for what the optimum length of a particular episode is? That is, how long, how many chapters or frames? And how does that relate to the monetization in terms of views and things like that? Because I haven't heard any discussion about the monetization. I know it's a monetizable platform, but I haven't heard any discussion about how that happens.
Mine's probably not the greatest archetype, because we do 26 chapters and it does get uploaded weekly once that's done, but Legendary backs into a year and a half later it comes out in print. So I'm sort of beholden as to how, because I could write it forever, but then they're going to have a book that's 100 pages long in the end of the day. So like Firebrand season 1 just came out in print. So mine isn't the greatest of examples, because some of their seasons go 100 chapters. And I think pretty much everybody, correct me if I'm wrong, uploads when they're in season weekly.
Yes.
So at least for me, once the train starts rolling, you're supposed to roll every week until you get to the end of the season. So
Yes.
I'll let you guys.
So pretty much everybody, all of you are aiming for a weekly.
Weekly,
Yeah, that's
weekly,
yeah,
weekly,
I do thrice a week.
twice a week.
3 times? Thrice.
Thrice.
That's British for 3 times.
I'm like,
Sorry.
well, he's from Denmark, so he's not quite British, but yes. But I do roughly 50 panels, or like around 60 panels a week.
Mm-hmm.
I do about 80 to 100. I think it's really important. Number of panels don't matter, but I think it's really important to give the audience something to hold on to every single week. Make sure it's not just like some random dialogue. Make sure that there's something that
There's, like,
they can think
progress,
about
yeah.
for the
There's
rest of the week.
development.
Yeah.
And the cliffhanger.
Yeah, hangers are good.
Okay.
So,
and-
so it's not necessarily about length in terms of panels. It's more you want to give them a substantial piece of story that gets
Yeah,
them coming
because
back.
like sometimes
Yeah.
you could have 100 panels and it'll still feel really short, and then or maybe like a chapter with 50 panels and it makes like there's so much going on that it makes it feel much longer.
So if I can use writerly stuff, if there's an emotional arc in each particular chapter, it doesn't
Yeah.
not just a cliffhanger.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And how does that, again, no one spoke about the monetization, about...
We kind of can't.
I thought that was what it's all about.
I can.
Go ahead. The guy from Denmark.
Okay. Well, WEBTOON has Patreon integration, so if you're an independent comic creator, you can put your Patreon right down below, and there'll be a little button that says Become a Patreon. Do you know what Patreon is?
Sure.
Right. And other than that, there's an ad revenue program that they just started doing on Webtoon Discover. You can become an original creator, which is like published by Webtoon, but that's where I can't say anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. But without getting into detail, so then Webtoon actually monetize? You
Yes.
get money, but
Yeah, they become a publisher.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
before that, it's from Patreon
Yes.
Yes,
Or
basically.
ad revenue.
Patreon
And
ad revenue.
ad revenue.
and ad revenue.
Yes.
So you do it's like YouTube model.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Can somebody talk about FastPass as well? We don't have to name figures or anything like that, but there's additional ways of monetization on the original side besides having actually a contract, and what you're going to get paid
Yes.
per episode, but also.
Yeah, so some of us have what's called Fast Pass, which is like you can buy up to 3 to 4 episodes ahead that's released before they're released to the public to read for free, and it comes out to like 50 cents an episode, I think is what it comes out to, and then the creators, it's negotiated on contract or whatever, gets a percentage of that.
I see.
So if you buy
5 coins is like $1.
500.
Yeah, so
But
like-
that assumes then, I guess, that you have actually published those in advance, meaning they're not
Yes.
officially
So,
released.
so you're basically just paying to get an early access to something,
I see.
and then that creator gets a cut of that.
I see. But the creator had to have put it on the site
Yes.
in order for them. Okay.
Yes.
So you're actually publishing it ahead of the
Correct.
official release date.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Great. Thanks for your questions.
Thank you.
Hello. Oh, I wanted to ask, is it difficult to talk about mental health issues or problems when it comes to writing in a webtoon? Because I know in Let's Play, Marshall's dealing with depression, and in UnOrdinary, John has his mental states. So is it difficult to write certain mental health topics?
I guess. A lot of it is really trying to put yourself in the character's mindset, because I don't know how to phrase this. I guess mental illness is I don't want to offend anybody. Is something it's kind of touchy. So yeah.
What sort of mental illness?
Well, for the examples, when it came to his depression, and John, he kind of has some PTSD when it comes to his old school.
Yeah.
So it was certain like that.
So one of the things about talking about mental illness was a really big concern of mine, because I don't want to portray things in an unhealthy way. So I actually have someone who is a therapist of 45 years that I consult with. So if I have put anything in that episode, then I'm like, is this going to hurt people? And they review it and inform me how I should possibly handle it differently. The other thing is that one of the things I did not expect of having health, portraying mental health in my comic, is that I get a lot of feedback from people who are in very bad places. I've had to call the cops on at least one person because they were going to hurt themselves that night. And fortunately, they got there in time. Almost. But there is this, to me, it's very important that it gets highlighted. I'm done with it being a stigma. I think people need to be, as long as people are trying to live a better life, then we can't give up on them, even if they have, in a sense, given up on themselves. So it's a slippery slope, but it's something that I'm willing to try.
And you wanted to add something, Merryweathery? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you for that question, because it's something that I think I've talked to a few of you who've come on the podcast, and it's important to remove the stigma. So I'm going to give you an iPad that has WEBTOON installed on it for that great question. So thank you for that. But
Can I ask a great question?
How does it feel knowing that your art influences many young creators and young people?
My art?
Art, sorry.
I can't draw.
Okay, well then you're writing.
My comics. Well, that's amazing. It's really cool. I remember being a weird kid sitting in middle school writing comics in the library, and everyone was like, "That guy's weird. What the f is he doing?" Sorry, I'm swearing. What the frick is he doing? It's awesome. I think everyone should be free to follow their talents. Just do it. Yeah.
anybody else want to comment on that?
I think that's pretty cool. If you guys want to start drawing again, like I didn't draw for like 15 years before I started drawing again, and that was fan art. So if somebody wants to draw fan art for like one of our titles and get back and then maybe do their own comic someday, I think we all think that's just pretty freaking awesome.
Great. Next question.
Okay. This isn't really related to the topic of today's panel, but like while writing or reading, has there ever been like a character from your webtoon or any other webtoon that you can like really relate to and connect to?
Yeah. I mean, some of the Firebrand characters are actual characters in my life, although I try not to let them know that they're in there. And it's very therapeutic. I had an evil stepmother, so she's totally tortured in there. And I like to torture her in my comics and writing. And yeah, there's that.
Back to the FastPass section. Even though you're taking in coins or whatever, like if you have like 3 chapters ahead or whatever number that is, you also take in the ad revenue and Patreon still, even though you're completely partnered with Webtoons, or is that just like you get to pick one or the other?
Once we become featured, it's no longer tied into Patreon. Now we can have our own Patreon on our own.
Oh, okay.
But it's not tied into Webtoons.
Gotcha. So
Patreon is with the Webtoon Canvas. So that's separate.
I believe we ceased to be able to advertise our Patreon on the comic. Is that correct?
Or does Webtoon advertise on it?
You can put a
on
link
your
to it at the
page?
bottom, but you can't like put big ads or something like that.
And when I was reading UnOrdinary, and then when I saw John get bullied, when you said like seeing people in their shoes, I've been bullied since pre-K all the way to around 10th to 11th grade. So then when I saw him snap, and then see it in his perspective, and then see how now they're vulnerable, it hurt me inside a little, because like yes, that's what they deserve, but no, you should have not gone that far. Like, because when I've been reading other comics and other stuff like that, like, and how do you get into that mental state of swapping from being punished to being the punisher?
Wow, this is gonna sound really bad, but
Tell us.
I feel like a good majority of people, or I can't speak for everyone, but I've been bullied when I was a kid, and one thing that I wanted to do was just, fight back. I guess it's kind of a way of telling people that it's something that you really want to do, but it's just, you shouldn't.
You shouldn't put them in the hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you.
Wish fulfillment.
Okay, we only have 5 minutes left. We want to get to as many as we can, so try to be brief. Okay.
For you, Mongie, when you so I saw when you first launched Let's Play, and I followed it from the beginning. When you were awesome comic, by the way. Thank you. When you were prepping to launch it, how did you go writing the script and breaking down the chapters? Because I'm planning on doing that on Canvas, and I'm trying to figure out where do I start? How do I break this down?
Right. So I wrote the synopsis. I basically came up with the beginning and I came up with the end, and then I filled in the inside. Like, I don't want to say filler because that has such a negative connotation with like manga and anime and stuff. But that it kind of was just fleshed out. So I would never have even started drawing the comic until I knew how I wanted it to end. Now there has been times as I've worked on the comic that I've just added more as I've gone along. So that wasn't originally in the printed synopsis. So get a good beefy synopsis going, and then you can start.
Did you have chapters like a bulk set up already to publish, or did you?
I stopped writing scripts for chapters after episode 10. So, and then after that point, it was just all in my head that it just came out. So once you get into the groove, it'll just come out naturally for you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And here, when you do your research before you launch.
I want to have
Okay, go ahead. Next question.
Hi, this question is for Merryweathery. So, since you're a writer, how did you connect with the artists that draw your comics?
I wrote a message and sent it to 500 people on DeviantArt. Usually I just I started knowing people, got a lot of friends, and it's mostly just been social connections from there.
Oh, and for the artists, since you guys like write and do the art on your own and all of that stuff, so before you started getting an editor from WEBTOON and all of that stuff, how did you kind of check yourself to make sure that like your story was going in the right direction and it's like not too cliche or like it'll do well, you know, like that?
Anybody? I think this goes back to knowing when you're ready.
I don't care if it's cliche. No, I think the editor is great. Our editors are great, and then like we bounce a lot of ideas off of them, and they read a lot of titles, so they might be like, oh, that's very similar to this, or that might be kind of overdone trope, or this might be something you need to take in consideration. They've all been very nurturing, I think, of our creative endeavors. So we have the same editor, so we can talk about them. So, but no, I think my experience so far has been very great.
Yeah, I think the thing, you know, before you get started, if you don't have an editor, share it with your friends and get their feedback.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm trying to make my own canvas comic, so it's like, yeah, I gotta figure out how to write it.
Gotta start somewhere.
Thank you.
Great. Next question.
Hi, this is for everyone. So, what are some personal experiences that led to some influences, like how it changed the story of your webtoons?
Anybody have anything that stands out?
I wouldn't really say there's like any experiences that change the story of like the webtoon, but more like something that would help enhance how I would tell a story. Like something bad happens and it'll help me portray a certain scene some way because I've gone through something similar. So I thought life experiences would really help enhance the story instead of just changing it.
Okay.
At least from my perspective.
Okay,
Thank you.
Next question.
Thanks.
I've been using WEBTOON for like 5 months now as a content creator, and I love the app. It's very intuitive. I like reading the comments on my own work. I was wondering, how do you guys deal with like burnout, because like trying to meet a deadline and you have other things in the way, like for me it's school and like other stuff. Like how do you balance that schedule to like deliver something, because your audience is expected for that to be on there on that day?
You quit your job and you quit your school.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah. Stay up really late. I mean, the hardest thing about life is scheduling, because everything always gets in the way. And it's about allocating time, and sometimes you give up a lot. I mean, I know these guys specifically give up a ton because they're doing so many chapters, and it just keeps going and going. And, you know, it does eventually become your job. And it's when you work for yourself, it's almost worse because you're working all the time. You just literally from sun up till sundown, and you have to find a way to balance it and set it down, actually, because it's your fun.
Your own worst boss.
Yeah, you are your own worst boss.
You are your own worst boss.
I was gonna say that the audience actually plays a huge role for me. Just knowing that there are so many people waiting to watch, that's a motivation. It pushes me through my burnout.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Great. We have time for one more question.
Very lucky then. My question is related to what you said before. Like artists are never satisfied enough, and I was wondering, like, what's the line between good enough and being not satisfied, but it's still good enough to be published? Like a panel, if it looks good enough, but we still like, ugh. Like, where's the line? How do we draw the line?
I got an opinion on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so like the art when my comic started is so much different now. I had to do a flashback, and for episode 87 that's going on Fast Pass, I was looking at old stuff. I was like, oh God. And it was bad. Like my art was bad. But one of the things I learned was that the thing about comics that's different is you're trying to visually portray a concept. You don't say it, show it. Ow. So if you are going to draw it as, you know, we can sit and we can just doodle all day long, or we can just rewrite that line over and over again. But if you get the concept across, whether it be through your art or through your story, and you don't have the time to just waffle on it forever, you just go, you know what? My readers are going to understand.
Finished is better than perfect.
And move on.
Yeah, finished is better
As
than
long as the
perfect.
idea is there.
Yeah.
Yes.
the concept
Sometimes
is
you just
there.
have
Yeah, you have to give your
Good
readers
enough.
some credit that figure stuff out on their own too.
Okay.
Like, don't overdo it. Readers are usually smart, so they'll figure it out.
Okay.
Okay,
all right.
thank you for that question. I think that deserves the last iPad. Booth 125, WEBTOON. Everybody going to be down there after the panel? So if you didn't get to ask your question, head down to booth 125. The creators will be there, and you can bend there or there. So thanks, everybody, for joining, and thanks to you all for coming out.